Hello and welcome to Why We Lead, educating today's warfighters to be modern and effective military leaders.
Hey there, everybody. My name's Chris Little with Why We Lead, and I got John Laney here with DoD Reads. We both met via LinkedIn, and we just kind of want to talk about a little leadership video today. And I kind of want to hand it over to him. He's got almost 20 years in. I've got about 8 myself. So we've both been in, obviously, a variety of leadership positions. But John, why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Chris. Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we got connected a couple weeks ago through LinkedIn and through your website. So I am a 19-year naval officer. Actually, 2020 this year is going to be my 20-year point. And I came into the Navy through the Naval Academy. During that time, I had really a sole focus of wanting to be a Navy diver and a Navy explosive ordnance disposal officer. And I focused on that throughout my time at the Academy, kind of to the detriment of all else. And what do you know, I made it. And it's been quite a journey. I've led a number of EOD explosive ordnance disposal platoons. I've done a number of staff jobs, as one can expect during a 20-year career. I've done an XO job at EOD Mobile Unit 2, definitely one of the highlights of my tour. And then right now I'm in command of Mine Countermeasures Division 3-1, and that is a mine countermeasures staff that is responsible for taking command and control of mine sweeping ships, mine clearance divers, and then mine clearance helicopters, and using those assets, divers, helicopters, and ships to clear mines from water space worldwide.
That's awesome. It sounds like quite the career so far.
Yeah, we say it's a blast. So it's been a blast. I've definitely enjoyed it.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Awesome. So now that you've been in a variety of leadership positions, what do you think leadership means to you?
Yeah, I think that's the toughest question. You know, I don't know what it means, but I will tell you what it means to me and how I have molded leadership into my command and my journey. And that's really helping other people. This is part of my mission in life, part of helping other people get to the very top of their personal and professional game. So I've got my experience. I've seen things, and I want to help you and you and you and the people in my command and the people that want to be a better leader. I want to help you get to the top of your game. And maybe the top of your game is getting out of the Navy and just being the best mom ever. You said, I've had fun. I want to focus on my family, and I want to go be a mom and not do anything Navy-wise. Great. I want to help you make that transition. I want to help you get to the top of your game as a mom. Maybe you want to be, the next chief of naval operations. You want to be an admiral. You want to be the next chief of operations. Good for you. I want to help you. I want to do what I can to help you get to the very top of that personal professional game. So there's thousands of definitions of leadership. Certainly can't give you one, but I can give you the one that's worked for me, and that's helping you get to the top of your game.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that perspective. And that's kind of the same as to, as a leader, it's not about you at that point. You have leaders and followers, and I feel like there's a fine line where, yeah, you're a leader, but you also have to learn how to be a follower at the same time to be able to learn how to be a leader. So transitioning through that, and you'd already talked about, even if you want to get out or whatever, hey, I'm here for you kind of thing. And I think that's really important. Yeah. So what did you do as a commander for leadership to kind of prepare for the role of command?
Yeah. What I did, well, there are a couple things that I did, and there are a couple things that were done to me, and we'll certainly go into both.
Both would be great.
Yeah, I think what's maybe even more important is to talk about what was done to me, because those lessons, the hard lessons, those lessons were so valuable and are so shaping in developing who I am as a leader and my philosophy as leadership. And I tell you what, some of those were pretty bad lessons. I had a rough go when I was the XO of EOD Mobile Unit 2.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned during that time, first of all, gave me a whole newfound respect for other people in a similar position, for other people in tough leadership positions, for other people that have been, maybe fired or are close to being fired or just struggling, and it really gave me a new perspective on that. The other thing that was done to me, which we'll talk about, which was the impetus for my website, DoD Reads. And I was probably at my 15-year point in my career. Mm-hmm. And I had finished my XO ride at EOD Mobile Unit 2. And I did okay. I got beat up. Finished on time, didn't get relieved early, so that was good. But I got a little beat up during that time. And my next step was command of an EOD unit. Okay. And so in order to be selected for command, you have to go up before a board of your seniors. They're all 06 captains in the Army. And basically spend an hour with you and just make sure that you're an individual of quality, make sure that you understand what you're doing, and just give you that final check before being selected for command. And the very first question on the board was a question from a guy named Captain Vince Martinez. And he said, "So John, what are you reading?" I didn't have a very good answer. It's like, Men's Health. I've read some instructions. I read a book summary, maybe a news article. Does that help you? I was like, okay. So you can tell right away. It's like, you didn't pass this first question. It's like, John, after you graduate from school, and you graduate from whatever university you're at, you need to own your own leadership development and your own personal development throughout the course of your career. You can no longer rely on your high school teacher, your philosophy instructor at the academy. You can no longer rely on your lieutenant course, your military leadership to carry you through the leadership for the next 20 years. You now need to own your leadership development and totally own that. Mm-hmm. Because if not, everybody else, you're just gonna continue to just putter along with the knowledge that you have, and that knowledge is not going to take you to where you need to go for the next 20 years. And that hit pretty hard home with me. So I just happened to be doing a cross-country trip next couple weeks or so. Mm-hmm. Downloaded cross-country drive, and I downloaded some audiobooks. The first book I downloaded was Fahrenheit 451, which, if you haven't read that book, it's a book about burning books. Mm-hmm. But the reason that they burn books in the future is because of the danger that the information in the books has. So dangerous, because you read a book, get some new information, you may end up changing your mind. Yep. And you change your mind, well, that can be dangerous for a whole lot of people for a whole lot of reasons. So the government, in Fahrenheit 451, goes around and burns books. It's like, wow, that's a really good concept. It's a pretty amazing concept. And I'll listen to some other books, some novels. It's like, wow, there's a lot of good information in this. Holy cow, there's quite a bit of information that I'm missing here. Man, maybe this book thing, maybe there's something to it. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I asked me that question.
Who knew?
Yeah.
So kind of one thing led to another, and I started a blog, dodreads.com, and really with the hope of finding another, Ensign Laney, Lieutenant J.G. Laney, Major Laney, and whoever else that person is, that's kind of was in my position 10, 15, 20 years ago, and really help and showing that individual the value of reading. So that's so I think that was a long question or long answer to your question. I hope I answered your question.
No, that was perfect, and that kind of leads me to a little segue about I admire General Mattis. I think he was a fantastic person. wholeheartedly kind of goes along with what you kind of preach is, hey, you should read. Well, one of my favorite things was he sent an email in 2003. He's like, I've never really been caught flat-footed in any situation, even if I've never been in that predicament before, because I've read 7,000 books, and it might not be like the biggest ray of light that I need, but it's a slight light to help me get to the end of that tunnel. And that's how I think reading really helps improve a leadership's perspective, and it lets you live something that you kind of vicariously, if you will, in a situation that you probably might not have in real life, that eventually you might run into. But I've read about, there's this one instance in this one book that I read about that General Mattis wrote about like 10 years ago or something. It's like these crazy situations that and I think that's how you, like you said, you don't stagnate as a leader. And I have a feeling that might have been why the '06 asked you that question. It's like, hey, what have you been reading? Like, to kind of gauge where you're at as far as your own self-development. And the earlier you start on that, like, man, that's over 10 years time, that would just multiply significantly. So that's some great advice and wisdom right there.
Yeah, and that's my favorite question to ask. Anytime I do any board for anybody, like, what are you reading? And if they tell me it's Men's Health and some, news articles, and I'm like, okay, I know where your mind's at. Like, I know what you're thinking. But they say, I've got a subscription to the Atlantic, and I was reading, whatever book on the Navy or Army or Air Force reading list. It's like, oh, wow, okay, well, I know where your mind's at. I know where you're thinking.
Do you think that would help separate somebody else from their peers, perhaps? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where it's just incremental improvements over a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to a 2-week captain's leadership course. Okay, they give you a lot of good information, and you take a lot of notes, and you learn the 7 principles of leadership and 5 principles of follower, whatever. And okay, so you get a good bump up of knowledge,
mm-hmm.
but it's over a very short time, so you get a bump. But if you read and continue to be a lifelong learner, then through the entire year, you're going to continue to get those incremental bumps, and you're going to continue to stay relative and continue to stay active and continue to stay learning. And your brain is going to continue to be exposed to new things throughout the entire 365 days, not just through that little 2-week leadership course that you take.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it absolutely separates you, and it also gives you a perspective that your life is bigger than just what you can see.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed reading some of the philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
Plato, Marcus Aurelius, and one of the philosophers, I don't know if it's Plato or Socrates or somebody, but their wife was quite a hard woman to live with.
Uh-huh.
And he said, having a wife like that makes me a better philosopher, because I can actually practice. I can actually practice what I'm teaching. It's like, you know what? He was dealing with that 3,000 years ago. Maybe my life's not so bad.
Uh-huh.
He was dealing with that. I'm like, I'm doing pretty good right now. And I didn't have to worry about the government trying to poison me and run me out of town and make me drink hemlock and any of those other terrible things. So yeah, it really gives you a perspective on life. We think COVID-19 is just the worst thing that's happened to us, but why don't you go back in history a little bit?
Yeah.
Back in history, COVID-19 hit, people wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even know it. Like, oh well, grandma died. Sorry. Like, and she was 43.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like let's talk about some real famines or real disasters. Not to minimize any of the suffering that's going on, but just keeping it in perspective is very important.
It is, and reading will help give you that perspective, as opposed to the Black Death when people didn't know what a virus was,
Yeah.
how to contain it or anything.
Yeah.
So along with all those lines, aside from wanting to start your continuation of reading at a younger age, what would you tell your younger self maybe 15 years ago, at like your 4 to 5 year mark, just making O3 or something?
Yeah, definitely the lifelong learning part. I think what I would tell myself then is kind of what I would tell myself now, which I struggle with now, is I touched on this in the intro, is I'm very, very focused on, I can tend to be far too focused on one thing. So at the Naval Academy, for example, EOD, 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 EOD. And I feel like I missed out on quite a bit of other experiences because of that sole focus. And, you know, as an EOD, as a, you know, division officer, went to a minesweeper first. And it's just a sole focus on some things. And right now, I can tell myself now, well, what have I been doing for the last 6 hours this morning? Well, working on DoD reads. So I can kind of get very, very focused on just one thing. And I'm sure there's advantages to that. I'm pretty successful with that, but it can certainly cause you to miss out on a lot of other opportunities that may be enjoyable or worthwhile or helped to round you out. You know, use that circle analogy. Well, I got a big bump on like what I focus on, and you know, maybe I'm missing out on family or fitness or, you know, some other things that I could also be working on. Fortunately, COVID-19 has helped me round myself out a bit. Been practicing the harmonica.
That's awesome.
And been baking some bread. So, you know, making some kombucha. This is homemade kombucha. So hopefully that's rounding me out again. Focusing a little bit more on the family. Took my boys on some exercise in the morning. We did some Tai Chi a couple mornings ago. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm being rounded out.
Getting out of your bubble a little bit, huh?
Yeah, trying to.
That's
Try
good.
not to be such a square.
Yeah. And another thing that I like to think about is, I feel like there's a lot of things where people maintain their comfort zone. And I would argue that to be able to grow as a leader, especially like, you know, when you were younger, you didn't really know what your vector was or what the future held. Would you argue that it's important to continually try and get out of your comfort zone to grow as a leader? That's what I try and do. Like even this website obviously is well outside my comfort zone, as I'm sure the one for you is as well. After the question, hey, what are you reading? Well,
Yeah.
shoot, man. That.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think it depends. And as long as so in the Navy, we have a term called a due course officer. And a due course officer is any officer that graduates from ROTC or the Naval Academy and is on course to be the Chief of Naval Operations. So we have, or to be an admiral, we'll say that. So those individuals continue to get challenging, more and more and more challenging positions in order to prepare them, because one of those officers has to become the next CNO. So, you know, we get all 4,000 of them, we say, okay, go, run, and we all do our best.
Yes.
Well, every one of those officers except one fails somewhere along the way. Many times because they've chosen to. They said, I don't want to do this anymore. I've had my fun. I'm going to get out, like me. Get out of it. But a lot of them also fail not due to choice. And they try as hard as they can, and they just can't make it as a company commander. They try really hard, and they just can't make it as an XO. They try, you know, really hard, and they fail. They get fired. So I'd say, and being the CNO is not for everybody. There is value in doing one thing and doing that well. There's value in being a really good follower. There's value in being a really good executive officer. I was an executive officer for 7 years, 4 different commands. I think that may be a record.
They must have liked you.
And what's that?
They must have liked you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or they didn't. They just kicked me off to the next one. But you know, we talk a lot about leadership. Well, I want to be the commander of new commands. Well, there's a lot of value, a ton of value in enabling, being that executive that enables the commander to have success. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it's really what suits you best and how can you best make that contribution. And oftentimes you don't know it. You don't know it until you've failed. And you say, you know, boy, this isn't working for me. And you know, and you've had a career setback. But I think that there can certainly be, you can certainly find your niche. And I feel that I was a due course officer after not getting selected for EOD command. I became a non-due course officer, and man, that at that point, my XO time and CO time at my current command, Mine County Emergency Division 3-1, if I self-evaluate, that is where I've had my most success.
Yeah.
And if I was a due course officer at a due course EOD command, I would not have been as successful. So I had a different level of command, a little bit smaller command, and became more successful through that. So
and that's what works.
Certainly tell that story because yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's good. In the Air Force, I don't know if it's an entirely Air Force thing, but as far as kind of what happens to you, a lot of it is 1/3 luck, 1/3 timing, and 1/3 what you know. And I like to try and focus on the 1/3 of what you know and how you can, you know, kick butt at that, if you will. And
yeah.
that's kind of why we're here today. So
yeah, it certainly is. And you can't influence timing. You can't influence the weather. Raining, bummer. Can't influence that. COVID, bummer. I have no influence on that. What my detailer tells me to do, my next assignment, bummer. Luck, bummer or good. But I can't, and that's a Stoic principle, is I can only focus on what is in my circle of control, not all the other things I'm aware of.
mm-hmm.
Don't like what the Navy policy. Don't like what the president's doing. Don't like COVID. Oh, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Only focus on what you can, on yourself and what you can control. And I tell that to my 6-year-old kid. We're all learning that.
Yeah. And one of the things you can't control is how much or how little you read.
Yeah, that's absolutely. It's one thing you can't control.
Mm-hmm. So to wrap things up here, why don't you just talk maybe a couple minutes about, I know why you started DoD Reads, you already told us that, but what can somebody glean from going there, if you will?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I think what I've much of the content on that on DoD Reads is authors interviews. So we've taken authors interviews, and I've actually got a handful of books here. A couple that we're going through the interview process with.
Yeah.
You can understand a little bit of the author's thought process. You can understand a little bit more about what the author's trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Understand a little bit more of the value of the writing process, mm-hmm. and how difficult that is, and what a process that is. What I've also added to DoD Reads is starting a new section on lessons learned either in command. So take a commanding officer that's just left command and he wants to write down his or her lessons learned, done some lessons learned, which can be really valuable. And also transition lessons learned. So it's valuable for me because I'm getting ready to do my transition. I'm at 20 years, gonna punch out at 20 years. And so to hear other people's experiences on their transitions it can be certainly valuable. The last thing is I give away books. So if you sign up for the newsletter, and I'm sure you can put the link in the show notes or put the link below, or just go to the site, DoD Reads. you can sign up for free books. I have a monthly newsletter, and all the authors, or not all, but almost all the authors that I interview, they send us free books, and I read those books, do a review on them, and then turn them around and give them to you. So if you like free books, like free things, sign up for the newsletter, and I give you a free book, and I even pay for the shipping. So
Cool.
it's at least one thing you can get.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time today. And like I said, this will be on LinkedIn and Why We Lead Facebook, and then for you as well to distribute as you see fit.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.